I won't be a bigot. My wife is a pastor of Redeemed Christian Church. Faith.
What God cannot do does not exist. Tinubu is telling us that he is not a bigot. Listen, when America, when they want to fight for the right thing, evil flees. Evil does what? It flees, run away and disappear. Finally, America has gotten the time of Nigeria religious cleansing. I mean, in the last 8 to 10 years, Buhari, now into Tinubu, we have seen how Christians, we have seen how people who are agnostic, people who do not want to be in any way have religious affiliation, have been persecuted, killed, sidelined, humiliated by the religious northern extremists and their leaders. So Tinubu now came out telling bishops, he hurriedly invited bishop to the Aso Villa. These bishops have never gotten an invite since the last 10 to 11 months. And since the last 10 months, we have had close to 9,000 Christians that have been annihilated by these northern Muslim elders and extremists. In fact, we have had the rights of Christians abused consistently. In the beginning of this month, March, which marked the beginning of the Ramadan fasting, we had Christians who had their children's right abused. They told them, one, you cannot go to school. Two, you do not have any right to host house fellowships, even in your own house. Thirdly, they said any gathering of Christians should be moved to the border areas of Muslim states. Now, Tinubu said it's not a bigot. Is Tinubu telling me that the issue that happened in those northern states, he didn't hear about it? Is Tinubu coming out to tell me that, well, what Castina Isba passed, something they passed publicly, Tinubu eyes, he don't go, right? Despite his bogus goggles and eyeballs. Is Tinubu trying to tell me that the series of warnings that Isba has pushed out there for Christians and against Christian communities in the north, that they must not drink alcohol, that every businesses that go against Sharia will be brought down, that every Christian's gathering that begins to command attention will be shut down? Is Tinubu not aware? There was a time Shawara even came out and lambasted all the northern governors. It said that they were all ignoramus, wherein they even started attacking Shawara and pastors. Some pastors who are in this thing for money making, they even challenged him, called him all manner of names. But oh yes, Tinubu in his normal sheer hypocrisy came out, called some bishops that, well, the Christians in Nigeria are not subjected to extermination. That indeed he is doing everything possible to stop the persistent persecution, termination, and life-shattering events happening in the north. That he is both for the Christians and Muslims. That indeed he is a liberal Muslim. He is not in any way for the Muslims, but for both the traditionalists, Christians, and indeed Muslims. But you see this little confession of Tinubu has now sparked the northern rage. The northerners are now calling Tinubu a fake Muslim. In fact, they are calling him a kafir. A kafir means a pagan. That it is either you are for one God or you are for none. They are now saying that Tinubu deceived them. Tinubu played them a dirty game. As I have on my screen, I mean, these are the comments of some northern, they call themselves scholars, but I call them, these are just ignoramus. These guys are extremists. These ones, they cannot think beyond their religious territory. They do not challenge the status quo. They can't even challenge their own Islam. These guys are now saying that we vehemently campaigned for Tinubu because we felt if he comes into power, he will do everything to ensure that the Muslims, restore and regain their golden age. Golden age simply means wherein Islam becomes the order of the day in governance, in education, in everything, in marriage, everything. Even in our laws, criminal laws, they start amputating people in the south, southwest, start amputating people in the southeast, wherein everything about the Nigeria will revolve around Islam. I mean, these were their intentions. Okay? And to be frank, they have been achieving some. I mean, have we not seen how in the past 2 years how the East Muslims have gotten more emboldened? In fact, we have seen a situation whereby the Sultan writes a letter of instruction to all southern governors, instructing them not to challenge Muslim indigenes or citizens in the south. Whether you have a Muslim Christian, you have a Muslim Yoruba, or you have a Muslim Igbo, that every state governor do not have the right to speak against any Muslim sultana who is seeking for Sharia court establishment. This is what, and this is how they have gotten so much emboldened. And we have seen how Tinubu has been looking away. He has been silent about it. Okay? In fact, we know that the people who have always stood up against what we call this religious bigotry and supremacy in Nigeria, they have always been the Igbo people, who are largely called Biafrans, and of course, we have seen the Middle Beltans. The Middle Beltans are largely Christians or into paganism. Yes, agreed, some of them practice Islam, but these Islams of the Middle Belt are the liberal types. They don't go around and start fighting for their God, a God who created you, who gave you the wisdom to create guns, bombs, and all of that. Is it that same God that you think cannot fight for himself if you think people are offending him? But you see, these ones, they want to do everything to die and kill for their religion. You will see that you have suicide bombers. You have people who say that they want to have cleansing of the land. They just go into a school where children are studying. They go into a church where people are praying to their own God that they believe in, and then bomb them, boom, kill themselves with it. Trump must not in any way withdraw these sanctions, because these sanctions is long overdue. The Christians no longer have a say. Christians are now changing their names from David to Daudu, from Samson to Sanusi, from Solomon to Sulaiman, from Jacob to Yusuf. Now, this is done because they have had an environment that only favors the Muslim people, the Muslim faithfuls, those who bear the names. Imagine wherein some people, this guy is called Arewa Daddy. These are people who are influencers on the social medias. These are people with following of like 300,000 people. Pe- People who have like 500,000 followers, and then they push it into the mainstream media saying that Tinubu is a kafiri, a pagan, because he called bishops and told them that for whatever had been happening to the Christians, well, my hands are clean. I have no intention. I do not support it, and I'm going to stop it because Tinubu called them last night. He had like almost 3 hours straight meeting with these guys, and he only thought it right to have such meeting when America placed sanctions. We must understand that America is a country that fights for what we call religious democracy. You can practice the religion that you want, most especially in every democratic nation. In any nation wherein you have a democracy, it doesn't matter even if it's a country that is governed by Islam, but do not start hunting down the Christians. Do not down closing, burning down their homes, their farms, everything wherein you make them feel less of a human. This is what Trump stands for. And I believe that imagine a Trump was in power as at the time Tinubu wanted to come in 2023, whereby we had the very aggressive religious campaign. The bigotry of the day was so enormous and so nauseating that every conversation has to be, it is only the Muslims that can provide it. The Christians are as minority. The Christians are only loud mouthed. You know, it got to a point that the tension in the society almost led to what we call a religious war breakout. You know, I'm sure if Trump was in power then, Tinubu might not have been the president. He could have lost. Because we all know that he rode on that sentiment of the Northerners. Because the Northerners, they think religion before anything. The Northerners, it has to be their religion first before nationhood. Yes. They think their religion first before anything. Okay? So, Tinubu wrote on that, deceiving them. He told the bishops, listen, my own wife is a pastor. So why should I be fighting against Christians? If I did not do anything to my wife, then why should it be people who are my fellow countrymen that I will hurt? That indeed what is going on is a machinations of the political oppositions and then some northern leaders, extreme elders who are financing terrorism for their own political gains and aggrandizement. These are his words. That they will fight. He gave them the scenarios of Middle Belt, gave them the instances of Southern Kaduna. Take a look at Birnin Gwari today. Birnin Gwari that was under the siege of this religious extremism when Erufai was there has been peaceful and people are returning back to their villages. These are his words to these people. So you can see that when America struck with over 60 something sanctions, Tinubu folds. But again, the Northerners, the Northerners are saying that why should an American interfere? That the Americans have no business. That this is their country, their nation. That indeed Nigeria is their heritage, their father's estate, as proclaimed by Uthman Danfodio. That America should stay away, lay off their hands. You know what struck me when I heard that? I said, imagine in a situation that Tinubu, that everybody was speculating, if this man enters, this man who is not feeling fine, if this man buy, it would have been Shetima. And people started crying, hey, Shetima, that Kabiru Sokoto was found in his residence as a governor, whom everybody knew was a bomber. How would Nigeria not become? But one thing is, if at all, I am going to have a little confession, is I am glad that Tinubu never buy. And I am praying that it doesn't buy. How terrible, no matter how terrible his governance is, make that man no buy you. I've heard how some people have been saying this man should buy. I pray it doesn't buy you. Because if it does, man, it's going to be a runoff. You know what we call a runoff into Islamic Republic. When his deputy takes over, it's going to be a what? A runoff. Yeah. So we must be, of course, be careful in our prayers. Right? The Middle Beltons today are sort of enjoying what we call relative peace, because the CDS sort of is protecting them. Largely, peace has been restored in Southern Kaduna. Okay? So we have to be balanced to an extent. Don't get me wrong. I am not saying Tinubu is doing well in the economy. Tinubu is a failure when it comes to that. When it comes to that, he's a failure. In fact, when it comes to our international reputation, Tinubu is failing on a large scale. But you see, Tinubu is doing one thing clear. He is cutting the wings of these Fulani oligarchs and these religious bigots. These Fulani oligarchs who are also largely extremists. He is cutting their wings, putting them in their little covens, chasing them out. And this is why today you can see that the North do not like Tinubu. So many of them are saying, Buhari, we are leaving. If you will not port to SDP like El-Rufai did, all of these religious bigots, all of them don't deport go SDP. They are telling Buhari, Oga, this man is not appointing Muslims. He is not appointing your own people. He is not appointing us. We gotta go. We are not gonna wait for you. But because you have had your own time. Nigeria is always for the North. So we must always have the largest share in every government. This is why they have been crying wolves, shedding tears. I'm glad Trump has placed that sanction. I mean, with that sanction that Trump has now foisted on Nigeria, I am sure Tinubu will do everything to continue to cut their wings. Cut their wings, put them in their places, let them continue to cry. Isn't that what we want? Let us listen to the full interview Tinubu had with the bishops.
We had previously sought an opportunity to meet with you last year, but for some reason did not receive a formal response from the relevant office. Nevertheless, we are deeply grateful that you have made time to welcome us today. Your Excellency may recall our meeting with you at the Catholic Secretariat of Nigeria ahead of the 2023 elections. That encounter provided an opportunity for us to hear your perspectives and share our vision for our beloved country. Today, we are here to congratulate you and encourage you in your efforts to reposition our nation and to share some areas of concern in pursuit of the common good of our people. We acknowledge your efforts in building up our nation and recognize the significant challenges these endeavors have presented. The removal of fuel subsidy in particular has caused considerable hardship, a reality of which you are undoubtedly aware. We also take note of your initiative in the tax reforms, which in the long run, we hope, will generate more resources for advancing the common good. We earnestly pray that at both national and subnational levels, adequate checks and balances will be instituted to curtail waste and promote prudent stewardship of our nation's resources. Sir, you are more aware than we are of the grave threat that insecurity poses to our nation. It has regrettably become a persistent scourge in our land. While we acknowledge the efforts of our security agencies, we cannot ignore the increasing resort to self-help measures by citizens who have seen their lives, property, and livelihoods devastated. Nigerians feel almost entirely helpless as a ragtag army of murderers continues to threaten the very fabric of their existence. We earnestly seek your assurance to rekindle hope and inspire confidence in the hearts of our people. Your government's policy mantra is anchored on the principles of renewed hope. In this regard, we are pleased to inform you that the Holy Father, Pope Francis, has declared this year as the Year of Hope, the Jubilee Year of Hope, a theme we adopted for our conference. We came with the final fruits of our deliberations and we share them with you. Mr. President, during our interaction 2 years ago, we raised serious concerns, one of which is on education, particularly the fate of mission schools taken over by the military. You shared how, as governor of Lagos State, you implemented their return. We urge you to extend this initiative nationwide and establish a committee to enhance collaboration in the education sector, especially at the foundational level. The future of our nation is at risk if education is not entrusted to capable hands. The escalating violence, particularly in northern Nigeria, underscores the devastating impact on millions of out-of-school children. In line with our long-standing commitment to education, Your Excellency, the Catholic Church established Veritas University in Buhari. We are pleased to inform you that the Medical and Dental Council has approved our application for a College of Medicine. True to our tradition, we remain committed to keeping our fees affordable for many families, despite the significant challenges this entails. In the light of this, we humbly appeal to your support, to enable us to contribute meaningfully to the advancement of medical education and healthcare in our nation. Strengthening this sector will not only benefit the Church, but also serve the greater good of all Nigerians. There is an urgent need for a clear and balanced approach to the role of religion in our country. Despite the constitutional provisions that imply a secular framework, Nigeria remains a nation of conflicting moral claims, lacking a well-defined vision for how religion can serve as a force for moral integrity and patriotic unity. In many northern states, the rise of morality enforcement groups, notably the Hisbah, has created serious concerns. While the promotion of moral values is essential, these groups have often engaged in acts of harassment and intimidation, particularly targeting innocent Christians and even Muslims who seek to exercise their fundamental freedoms. The enforcement of a strict interpretation of Islamic morality, influenced by the Wahhabi ideology, threatens social harmony and poses a significant challenge to community cohesion. Efforts should be made to ensure that religious practice in Nigeria fosters unity rather than division. Your Excellency, given the limited resources available, we believe that the federal and state government should allow religious groups to take full responsibility for organizing pilgrimages. In their current structure, the national and state pilgrims boards serve neither their adherents nor the broader interest of the nation. You are undoubtedly aware of the instances of corruption that have led to the removal of some board executives. To ensure greater efficiency and accountability, we propose that public funds be redirected towards pressing national needs. We appeal to Your Excellency to direct the Ministers of Education and Health to ensure equitable access to land for places of worship for both Christians and Muslims across the country without delay. Mr. President, we once more express our gratitude for this audience and for your willingness to engage with us on these critical matters affecting our nation. We assure you of our continued prayers and collaboration for the good of our beloved country. As we conclude, we invoke God's abundant blessings upon you, your family, and all who serve in your government. May the Almighty God grant you wisdom, courage, and strength to lead with justice and compassion. May He guide your efforts towards peace, unity, and prosperity for all Nigerians. And may His divine hand steer our nation towards a future in which our hope for a flourishing, peaceful, and united Nigeria will become real.
I won't be a bigot. My wife is a pastor of Redeemed Christian Church. Faith. But we have to think of our country as if this country must develop, must go beyond myopic beliefs, must stand beyond religious bigotry. And I'm here, open to you, ready to listen. People that are either of the Catholic faith are here. We've been together for some time. We still have an open door policy. I will not shut my doors. I will be ready to help. We will set up the committee to, as you suggested. And if you have recommendations, please give us to us. I've not been able to set that up instantly. Now, we've established state loan fund to help the poor and ensure that our children are not left behind because of tuition fee and all of that.